Hi guys, this video is for my class, so if you're not interested in a little bit of a lecture on energy and an ecosystem within the fish room, then just skip it. For my class, we're doing a unit on energy, and so I wanted to show you some of the ways that energy can flow through an ecosystem using some things that I have in my fish room. So we're going to start off with some green water. Okay, so this is a bucket full of green water, and the green water, I'm using an LED light strip to provide energy for it. And you'll see that this LED light strip has blue and red LEDs in it. And the reason for that is that they provide the optimal wavelengths for photosynthesis. And so the single-celled algae that are living in this water are using those red and blue lights to have the perfect wavelength energy in order to go through the photosynthetic process. So in photosynthesis, the algae are using carbon dioxide and water to manufacture carbohydrates, specifically glucose. Now they can do that with just carbon dioxide and water, but algae and higher plants, they require other nutrients in order to survive. So they actually, in a way, they sort of have to eat. We don't think about plants as eating, but they do need to absorb other nutrients. So typically, the way we get them those other nutrients is with fertilizer. Okay, so I have this Easy Green fertilizer, and I don't want anybody who uses Easy Green for Planet Aquariums to think that this is going to give them green water. I'm using it at 10 times its normal strength, and I'm also illuminating this bucket 24 hours a day. So there's a lot of energy going into this bucket, and there's a lot of fertilizer. All right, so what is a fertilizer? Fertilizers typically have three major components: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And typically on a fertilizer, we're going to see three numbers underneath the label, and those are called the NPK numbers. So N for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, and K is for potassium. In Latin, potassium is called kalium, and so that's where the K comes from. Okay, so we're putting fertilizer into the water, and we're giving the plants lots of light, in this case the algae, lots of light, and they're able to grow and reproduce because they have all the nutrients and all the energy that they need. So the energy coming into this ecosystem here is from the lights. Okay, so now what am I doing with green water? Well, what I'm doing with it is I'm harvesting it. So there it is. And I am feeding it to Daphnia. Okay, so what are Daphnia? You can't see them too well in this bucket because I just disturbed it, and I also just started the culture. But if we look over in this bucket over here, we can see that we have all of these little crustaceans swimming around. So crustaceans are shrimp are crustaceans, lobsters are crustaceans, and these guys are also crustaceans, although they're distantly related to shrimp and lobsters. So these guys, Daphnia, they eat single-celled algae, and so our algae is what we call an autotroph. Single-celled algae are autotrophs. Autotrophs, the word auto in this case means self, and troph means to feed. So the autotrophs are self-feeders, and we call them that because they are not going out and eating other organisms. They're taking in nutrients from the environment, they're taking in energy from the sun, they're manufacturing their own carbohydrates through photosynthesis. Once they manufacture carbohydrates, they can also manufacture fats, waxes, and oils. If they have some nitrogen, they can manufacture proteins. If they have some phosphorus, they can manufacture DNA and other nucleic acids, and they can also manufacture phospholipids. Okay, so the autotrophs are manufacturing all these things, and because of that we call them producers. All right, so the autotrophs are also known as producers. One way you can remember that is if you think about the aisle in the supermarket where you buy your vegetables, we call that aisle the produce aisle because those vegetables are producing carbohydrates, fats, waxes, oils, proteins, and nucleic acids without actually eating anybody else. Okay, so then moving on, our Daphnia are not autotrophs, they're heterotrophs. The word hetero in this case means others, and so we can think of these guys as feeding on others. And who are they feeding on? They're feeding on the autotrophs. Because they feed on autotrophs, we call them primary consumers. Right? So heterotrophs are consumers, autotrophs are producers, heterotrophs are consumers, and since these guys are actually eating the autotrophs, they are called primary consumers. Now, we can take the primary consumers and we can pull some up in a pipette, and I can introduce you to Cryptolabius marmoratus. Okay, this is one of my favorite fish in the world. This is a really, really cool animal. And this one is super tame, and of course, as soon as I say that, she dives out of the way. So, let's see if we can find another one who wants to be fed. And if I can open the top of the tank without making too much of a mess. Of course, it's going to give me a hard time. Well, let's see if we can do it like this. Where is our fish? I think it's underneath. Oh, there it is. And so let's put the pipette in, and let's put some Daphnia in the water and see what happens. And right on cue, our Cryptolabius marmoratus comes over and chomps on the Daphnia. So, Cryptolabius marmoratus is also a consumer, but in this case, Cryptolabius marmoratus is not a primary consumer. We can call Cryptolabius marmoratus a secondary consumer. Now, does anybody eat Cryptolabius marmoratus? Sure, lots and lots and lots of other fish and birds will gladly eat Cryptolabius marmoratus, and therefore, those animals might be called apex predators because they are at the top of a food chain or a food web. Okay, so don't want to make this video last forever, but Cryptolabius marmoratus, you might be saying, oh my gosh, why do we have to have such crazy big long names that I can never remember? Well, we give animals and plants and all living organisms what we call scientific names because that way they have a single name that everybody can refer to them by. This fish is also called a mangrove rivulus, and maybe there are some other common names for it, but everybody knows that Cryptolabius marmoratus is this fish. Now, why is it named that? Well, crypto means hidden, and labius refers to lips, so evidently, if we could see this fish's mouth really closely, the lips might appear to be hidden. I've never noticed, but that's its name. Marmoratus simply means marbled, and on occasion these fish will have a marbled pattern on their side. And so that's why it's called that. Now, why is this my favorite fish? This is like the plainest, most ordinary little brown fish ever. Well, it is the world's only self-fertilizing vertebrate hermaphrodite. Okay, so what that means is that this fish exists in hermaphrodite populations where there are essentially no males. There can be males, but often there are none. And these hermaphrodites simply manufacture eggs and sperm, fertilize their own eggs, lay fertile eggs, and those eggs hatch and grow up, and no male necessary. In 10 years of keeping this fish, I have one male that I ever had grow out. And so males not necessarily that common. This fish also can breathe out of water. And you'll notice I have this little styrofoam half of a cup in here. And I will frequently come into the fish room and the fish will be up on top of the styrofoam cup just hanging out in the air. They can breathe air through their skin. And the record for one of these being out of the water in a lab is 60 some odd days. I think it was 60 something days, 68 days, something like that. And it was Friday, everybody went home. When they came back on Monday, the fish was dead. But that's after being out of water for over 2 months. It was on damp soil, and it was fine that way. I think what the problem was is that it couldn't eat above the water, and so it basically starved to death after 2 months of not eating. So these fish are really, really cool. In the wild, they're found under leaves outside of the water. They're found inside of rotting logs outside of the water. Super, super, super cool little fish. All right, so that's enough of me rambling. Everybody have a good day and be well. Thanks for watching. Oh, and my class, if you're going to comment, this is a public channel, so don't comment unless you want people to be able to answer you back. All right, everybody be well. Bye.